If the NSA is not snooping on you, the mall just might be. Retailers now have facial recognition technology that can identify shoppers and even recognize whether they've ever shoplifted. Now, this kind of reminds us here of a scene you may have remembered in The Minority Report.
Hello, Mr. Yakamoto. Welcome back to the Gap. How those assorted tank tops work out for you?
Mr. Yakamoto.
All right. Now, privacy advocates, they're trying to ban this technology.
Right, throw him out of the store, and everybody's all for that.
Thank you very much. Or at the very least, set ground rules for it. Now, should you have to give up your privacy just by going shopping? And to me, one of the more fascinating things about this is a court didn't even decide this. You know, people always say, oh, well, the law hasn't caught up with technology. It's worse than they think. It's the Wild West, where you have basically some government panels saying, I guess, go ahead. You know, forget about having a debate in this. I mean, it's getting so far ahead of us. I shouldn't have to walk into a store and assume they know everything about me when I come in. They're going to drive me as to what I want to buy and whatever else. If I want to stiff arm a salesperson, I should be able to without being bombarded by it. Do I have to give up my privacy as soon as I walk into, in the example you just saw, the Gap?
It's such a continuing discussion that we have on the show. You know, every couple of months.
It seems like the yard markers keep changing by the week.
The answer is yes. In the same way they have a video camera, you know, when you walk into a store, there are things called LPRs now, license plate readers. You drive your car somewhere, there are license plate readers on the street that read where you go, where you park your car.
Now, I may not like that, Jimmy, but I accept if I'm going into a store or even now the public street, that a camera may be watching me,
right.
Okay? I accept that law enforcement may be reading my license plates and there might be red light cameras and all the rest. May not like it, I accept it. I understand if I get an easy pass, there's basically a stamp on me wherever I'm going and they can follow. But that's a government or a law enforcement entity. Now I'm going into a private operator whose thing is they're going to sell me khakis or a shirt. Why should they be able to have the legal right to know everything about me because now they're going to, you know, should the quid pro quo is if I go to buy something, you now have a right to my private file?
Rich, that's just backwards, respectfully, because the Fourth Amendment. Because the Fourth Amendment protects against government spying, government action. These are private actors, so it's really.
Doesn't it make it worse?
No, it makes it less worse, if that's a word. I mean, your constitutional right is against unlawful or unreasonable searches and seizures effected by the government, not by a private actor. So it's really not.
But can I argue, though, Mark, that the government, flawed though it might be, has a compelling security interest to at least whatever protect the public good? What is the compelling interest for the Gap to be able to pull up my private file?
Well, that's, you know what, the private files really touches on what we were talking, what Sotomayor talked about in her concurring opinion in the GPS case, the Jones GPS case. These new technologies, to analogize them to old forms of technology and old privacy expectations, it's not a really good fit. And she, in her opinion, espoused that it's time for a new notion of what privacy is and what a reasonable expectation of privacy is in the digital age. And that's the discussion we keep having on this show as a microcosm of what's going on in society at large. Until the notions of privacy change to keep up with the digital age, we're going to keep having this debate every time a new technology
But Mayor,
emerges.
shouldn't there be like a consumer bill of rights where I can choose to opt in, okay, to if somebody wants to customize as a vendor here to try and get me as a client, they can, if I sign on, they'll narrow the search because they know my likes and dislikes, and they'll make it a more efficient experience. Who de facto gives them the right to do this? If you follow this to the next step, they're going to decide that shoplifters, prior shoplifters, you know, they're going to treat me differently than a guy who may have just gotten out of the state pen for doing 20 years for a murder. Right? So people are making determinations about privacy as if there's a stated quid pro quo because I walk in their door.
Well, we're the ones who enable this. And when you go to Amazon, you know, look, they know what you're buying. They can tell you, hey, we suggest this for you. You go to Apple, they'll say, oh, you bought this song, you might like that song. When you go to Netflix, the difference is they're not taking your picture, that you're aware of at least, and they're not basically comparing it and running your criminal history to determine if you ever shoplifted. But by saying I do and clicking I agree or walking into these stores and buying things,
No, but I made a decision when I clicked I agree. Are we saying now walking in the door is the same thing?
I would think, as Mark said, I think if you post a sign, then they're telling you ahead of time that you're going in there and that they're going to be doing this. And if you continue to go in and you go in anyway, then it's on you. My issue,
consent is what it is.
My issue basically is that when you do that, you can push back, and that's kind of why Apple right now is
where
being.
We put the onus. You've put it on me that if all I want to do is buy a flippin' T-shirt, I now have to make a decision as to whether or not I want to walk in a door to have my life re-examined by some entity.
But if you look, Apple now they encrypt the phones. So it's harder for their devices to be used by government, to be decrypted, right, unencrypted. But when you think about it, that's because people pushed back.
Right.
They thought that, you know, our consumers don't want all of this. They want their privacy. So if we let the stores know that, hey, we're not going to come here, and if your competitor doesn't do this, we're going to go there, that's how you
Let's not also give Apple also the benefit of the doubt. They also don't like the government telling them what to do.
Well, but here's the thing, though. What you're talking about is 100% right, but it's a quaint and antiquated notion of privacy, because if you think some 20-year-old or 15-year-old is thinking about privacy in the cherished way that the people at this table think about it,
fair enough, Mark,
not
but you
even
know
close.
what? A court didn't even decide this.
Well, that
Three ding-dongs did basically decided what they should or shouldn't do.
Be
We
litigated
didn't even
in a
have
court.
a vote on it.
No, it'll be litigated in a court, and I'm telling you, if they post the sign, you're implying your consent, and the onus is on you to walk away.
I got a question for each three of you individual ones. If Larry's not yelling at me, then I'm out of time. We're going to ask our panel here, take a look at our legal system and ways that it could be improved from public defenders on down. We'll be right back. Stay with us.